Welcome to NAIOP Solution Series program titled Compensation Becomes a Top Priority. My name is Sandy Hudson, and I will be your host. The Solution Series programs are available at no cost to NAIOP members. These mini webinars run less than 30 minutes, and our goal is to provide you with some quick tips and insights, all types of positive strategies and tactics to help you succeed in today's business environment. We encourage you to drive the content. Please send us an email to solutions@naiop.org to let us know what topics and presenters you would like to hear from in future programs. Please advance to the next slide. NAIOP has produced the popular Solution Series programs for over 2 years. Did you miss one of our informative topics? The archives of these programs are available to NAIOP members at no cost through the On Demand Bookstore. Examples of past programs are listed on the current slide. Our topics cover finance, niche development, logistics, and more. Visit the NAIOP website at www.naiop.org/solution series for links to the archives. Please advance to the next slide. And now let's get on with our program. With us today is Christopher Lee, President and CEO of CEL Associates Incorporated, one of the nation's leading consulting organizations specializing in strategic planning, compensation, benchmarking, opinion surveys, and performance improvement in the real estate industry. He is an acknowledged leading futurist, has his PhD in management and organizational development, and for over 30 years has been an advisor to real estate companies nationwide. For over 20 years, his firm has conducted the nation's largest compensation survey in the real estate industry, and in 2011, Chris's firm will conduct approximately 2 million customer opinion surveys. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Sandy. Well, welcome everyone to the topic that seems to be on the mind of everyone today in the real estate industry, and that's compensation and employment trends. I've divided my presentation today into 4 parts, as you can see on the screen today. We're going to go through each part carefully and thoroughly to make sure that you understand what some of these emerging trends are and how you can best respond to them. So let's take a look at the first one. The emerging employment and compensation trends. Each year, we conduct a survey of CEOs across the country asking them questions, what are your top priorities? What are the things that you're looking at now? What will you be looking at likely in 2012? And you can see from the slide that's shown on the screen right now, is that the issues of employment are both ranked number 4, which is upgrading talent base or hiring, and number 6, retention of talent. So in the top priorities of CEOs today, the top 12, compensation, employment, personnel matters are in the top half of those priorities. But the writing clearly is on the wall today. When we look at our surveys and look at our interviews today from our surveys of companies across the country, 65% today of today's CEOs plan to retire by 2020. Colleges and universities are not producing enough job-ready graduates. The average employee tenure is now only 3.8 years. And clearly there's further consolidation of the industry is on the horizon as retiring CEOs, retiring founders are looking for ways to exit the business rather than continue to expand the business. More women are entering the positions of leadership and authority. There clearly is greater diversity and independence at the board level. And beginning in 2015, which is really just 4 or 5 years away, there will be a potential shortage of 15,000 to 25,000 qualified real estate professionals per year. And the reason for that is the last bullet. The baby boomers just are not retiring. If you take a look at those who are expected to retire by 2020, you can see that at the president CEO level, almost 60% or so are going to expect to retire within the decade. CFO, executive vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and vice presidents are also shown. But clearly the amount of turnover in our industry is going to accelerate, particularly as the economy begins to recover, and as soon as the CEOs or founders feel it's comfortable for them to exit the business, they will. And that will cause an enormous demand on every organization as the need for talent will increase dramatically. From a compensation perspective, you can look at the next slide here and see what compensation trends have been since 2001 and what they are to be expected by 2012. If you look at the green line, the 2010 average, you can clearly see where it was last year. The company average increases were around 2% of pay raises. The 75th percentile was about 3.5%. In 2011, the year we're in today, raises are going to average around 2.5%, and in the 75th percentile, about 3.8%. The expected pay raises in 2012 will be around 3.4%. So clearly you can see a rise from 2010 of 2% to now in 2012 coming up about 3.4%. These are both in excess of the general rate of inflation. Moving further to the right on the slide, you will see a column called Incentive Compensation Bonus Realization. In 2010, the expected realization of bonuses was about 67.3%, which means that those who are expecting bonuses of 100% of their potential, they received approximately 67% of those in 2010. In 2011, that has increased 10 percentage points up to nearly 78% of bonus realization, which means obviously a good year for all employees in 2011. And in 2012, CEOs and companies are expecting to award 80.3% bonus realization, which means, again, from 67% in 2010 to over 80% in 2012, another dramatic jump in the bonus realizations for employees. So pay raises are going to be increasing. Bonus realizations are also going to be increasing. If you look at turnover trends, the next slide here, one of the concerns that we always have in our industry is how many people are turning over. If you look at this chart here and go down to 2009 and 2010-11, the last three columns, you can see that in 2009 there was a dramatic turnover rate, overall rate of about 33.4%. As the economy worsened and as people began to want to hold on to their jobs, the turnover rate dropped dramatically to 27.9%. 2011, the year we're in today, the turnover rate rose just slightly to 29.5%, indicating a slight confidence in the economy and a slight confidence in the ability to change jobs, but nevertheless still far below the 33% turnover that was just in 2009. On the bottom of the chart, you can see some of the average ages, which is also part of the reason there's going to be a larger turnover rate over the next several years in our industry. The average age of a construction executive is now 53.1. The average age of a real estate executive is 57, roughly, for males and 51 for females. Property managers are over 40 years of age, 43.9. Brokers are 48.6. And the average board member in a real estate company is now 61.2. So as you can see, we're getting older in our industry here, and the need for young people to be brought in, the need to monitor this very closely will be very important for real estate firms going forward. So what are the results of our just recently concluded 2011 and 2012 National Real Estate Compensation Survey? And you're lucky to receiving this information now because it's just been completed and just being released over the last few weeks. Our survey was conducted in the second quarter of 2011. Approximately 400 firms participated. Over 100,000 real estate professionals were represented. 40% of those or so were NAIOP members. This is the nation's largest real estate compensation and benefits survey. And so the information you're getting is nationwide, and it's for all positions. Let's take a look at some of those trends. If you just look here, and I'm going to pause for a little bit here, but as you go through there, this is from CEOs through the HR executives and IT people. As you can see, where their pay raises have been between 2006 and 2011. That's the far right-hand column. And you can see that the CFOs, as an example, that their pay raises have risen 36% over that period of time, while the chief investment officers, obviously the ones that were impacted by the downturn, their pay has actually decreased by almost 7%. HR executives is another very popular position, one that's in demand today, and their pay has increased approximately 38–39% over that same period of time. The next slide shows some additional positions, and you can go down the list. Clearly you can see that research has become a very important thing in many real estate companies as they try to achieve a competitive edge and try to find that extra bit of information that will enable them to secure a lease or to find a development opportunity or to create some unique situation that they're all trying to, a customer situation or something like that. But you can see those pay raises over that period of time clearly is there. But again, finance directors have gone down. Training has also gone down because training has moved somewhat to electronics like you're seeing in the solution series and things like that. So you can see where pay has been in those positions. You can also see in this other slide some of the division executives, acquisition executives, and property managers, the last 4 positions on the chart here, where their pay has actually declined in some extent over that period of time, 2006 to 2011, as firms began to cut back, hold back, try to keep expenses in line. And they've kept compensation down, and we've all experienced that over the last few years as pay increases have been frozen, bonuses, as you saw earlier, have not been realized to the extent possible. So clearly those pay raises have and increases have declined over a period of time. If you look at the comparative results of our national survey just completed and compare them just to NAIOP members, you can see that NAIOP members and the senior executives are actually getting less on a expected increase for 2011 than the national senior management personnel, 2.6 to 3.1. But it's fairly consistent for all the exempt employees, non-exempt employees, and the company average is fairly close. But the bonus realizations are also a little bit low. About 67% for NAIOP members and almost 78% for the national survey. So senior level is getting a little bit less on pay raise, and looks like the companies are also awarding a little less bonuses in that regard. Some of the emerging benefit trends are seen on the following slide here. I'll probably add just a couple of those. You can see on the left-hand column, dental insurance is now being provided by nearly 94% of the survey participants, which is dramatically higher than it has been in the past. Employer match 401k is now almost 75% on the right-hand side of the column. And if you look to the bottom there, the workforce reduction and workforce hiring has been highlighted because approximately 56% of the firms surveyed intend to be hiring this year, and only 6% expect to reduce workforce, which means we're in a hiring mode. Compensation is rising, bonuses are rising, 401k matching is increasing. You can just see all of these items on the chart is that this is becoming a more robust time for employees, but also equal that challenge as they try to, as employers and companies try to manage expenses in a very expense-conscious environment. So let's take a look at what the outlook will be then for 2011, the remaining months of this year, and 2012 going forward. What we see from our surveys and from our conversations with CEOs across the country is that hiring will be up over the prior year. There's going to be a greater reliance now on performance scorecards as employers look to quantify and use quantifiable measures to evaluate performance and less qualitative measures. There's a greater use of temporary employees, consultants, and try before you hire employees. It's a very convenient way for many people to go out and bring someone on board as a temp employee where you may not have to pay medical benefits or use consultants, or even try before you hire employees where you really get a chance to experiment before you make that final commitment for a long-term relationship. The 401k matching contributions every turn, as we just saw from the earlier slide. We're also seeing, though, a continued pass-through of higher health care costs to employees. Approximately 25 to 29% of the overall cost of health care is now being passed through to the employees by the real estate companies. And with health care benefits up around 8 or 9% this year, clearly that's an expense that will be incurred now by, a portion of which will be incurred now by the employees. There also are key geographic differences related to compensation. Certain parts of the country are paying more. Those that are more active, places like Texas or elsewhere, Virginia, are clearly more active, and compensation is rising in those areas because there's a lot of activity. Areas that are more impacted by this economic downturn are clearly seeing compensation rise at a different level, a much lower level. We're also going to see a greater focus on employee productivity measures as HR directors and CEOs in real estate companies look to see how do we measure the effectiveness of our employees And one of the more popular measures that's emerging right now is this productivity measure, where you can take your total personnel costs and divide it into revenues, or total personnel costs and divide it into your NOI or your EBITDA, to see is for every dollar that we spend on employees, what is our productivity level for that dollar spent? And that measure is becoming more and more popular as companies look to find out the greatest levels of efficiency and effectiveness in their execution of their business model. And finally, those upgrade and replacement hirings will continue as real estate firms look around the landscape and see many, obviously, unemployed people across the country, many of which have come from banking or financial institutions or capital markets or mortgage banking, other places that have been hit by the downturn. And as they look at those, they say, wow, these are some great people out there. And so that upgrade hiring or the replacement hiring is having a much broader spectrum of which they can select employees. This is obviously positive for the future of many of those companies. So what do you need to do? It's very clear. First of all, you need to emphasize as you go forward in your compensation planning and how you manage your personnel, you need to emphasize your organization's core values. What's most important to you? The values that you hold most dear: integrity, professionalism, honesty, quality, service to customers, all those elements that are your core values. Those are the kind of things that need to be emphasized as you seek employees who share those same set of core values. You need to also examine ways to reduce employment costs, but yet strengthening the capabilities and capacities of the firm. So sometimes it's not a question of replacing one employee with another, but perhaps two employees being replaced by one more senior level employee, or things of that nature where you might be able to reduce cost, yet you've strengthened the ability for you to execute because you have a higher quality individual in that position. You need to prepare your organization for constant change and surprises. We're in a tumultuous period of time that is, as the industry goes through transitions and transformation, as our economy changes, as the jobless recovery continues for a period of time, we're going to be subject to a lot of change and a lot of surprises that will cause real estate firms to have to always keep their eye on the ball, always be in touch with their employees, making sure that they always retain those rising stars and making sure they take care of the employees who help them achieve their goals. You need to support a robust training programs because many people who join organizations may not have the skill sets necessary to meet today's challenges. And so training and retraining of employees at all levels, from the CEO down to the lowest levels in the organization, need to be constantly trained so you can be most efficient and most effective at what you do, and making sure that all of those employees in your organization have the skills necessary to execute your business plan. You'll have to also learn how to manage these conflicting generational priorities. And that is obvious when you have those that might be in their late 50s or 60s, and those are in their 20s. Those in the 50s and 60s are thinking about retirement in a few years, so they're not willing necessarily to take risk, and they may want to hold on to their jobs a little bit longer. And those in their 20s and 30s are just starting their careers, and they want to take risk and get started and have new ideas and try something a different way. And so they'd like to impose some change on the organization. So how you manage those differences between the 60-year-olds and the 20s and the 30-year-olds is something that will be a constant priority for all leaders in real estate organizations. You also must deploy a very contemporary compensation plan. That means that looking at the survey results that you've seen just earlier here and heard about is that how you reward your people, how you incentivize your people, how you structure your bonus programs, how you structure your long-term incentive programs, are they market competitive? Are you able to attract and retain the best people and motivate them to the highest performance levels with your compensation program? You also need to take steps to retain all your outstanding talent and your rising stars, making sure that everyone in your organization who is the future of your organization is someone that you are committed to making sure stays with your organization, giving them the skills and the priorities necessary to go forward in the organization. You need to also implement staffing models that are aligned with your organization's vision, its goals, and its core strategies. One of the things that I found common in many organizations, particularly when you look at these three vision, goals, and core strategies components, one of the things I've noticed in many organizations is that most employees do not know what the vision is of an organization. They do not know what its goals or top priorities are. They do not know what its core strategies might be. You know, an interesting test that you might do in this particular, for this particular bullet is just walk down the hallway of your organization. Pick 4 or 5 people randomly and say, please write down what is the vision of this company. Please write down what is the goals of this company. And I will guarantee you that you will not get the same answer from all those that you ask, even those that are listening to the solution series now and are in a room. When this gets done, why don't you write down a piece of paper and say, okay, what is our vision? What are our goals? What are our top priorities? And see how common or not common those results are. You do also enhance employee communications and recognition programs because it's important that employees know what's going on. They read the newspapers, they see the headlines, they know the economy is challenged, and so communicating what you're doing, what your priorities are, how you're responding to them is very important, but also recognizing that all employees are making a contribution. It's not just the biggest producers, it's not just the highest ranking individuals, but rewarding and recognizing those people who are clearly sharing those or demonstrating the core values that are so personify what your organization stands for. Acknowledging those people who are dedicated and committed and loyal and working very hard to help you achieve your goals. And finally, you need to deploy the right people in the right places at the right time doing the right things. And I bolded this for that reason because if one thing you'll remember from this conference, this webinar, is that you will see that if you have the right people, that means hiring the right people, those that share those same core values and same priorities that you do, putting them in the right place so that you're capitalizing on their core competencies, you're capitalizing on their abilities to go out and do something extraordinary, and deploying them at the right time, meaning not after the fact, but when it's most necessary to have them in that right place at that right time, and obviously then doing the right things, giving them the tools and the resources and the support necessary to go out and achieve incredible results for your organization. Compensation has become a top priority in real estate organizations. The survey results clearly indicate that. The surveys of top CEOs clearly say that. The results are in. Compensation is a top priority, and what you do as an organization, what you do as a leader to retain and to motivate your talent will be a key to your success into the future. I want to thank all of you on the conference, the seminar, who have listened to the webinar. I want to thank you for your attention, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Sandy. So thank you very much.
I'll go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. Chris, thanks for a great presentation and discussing the latest compensation trends in commercial real estate. As you can see on this slide, the NAIOP CEL Associates Incorporated 2011-2012 compensation report is now available for sale in the NAIOP On Demand Bookstore. Thank you for listening to our session.